Recently we had a meeting, SAARC meeting in fact in Pakistan, and what do you say, how did India tackle that issue? And we had our Home Minister coming in between the meet itself, skipping the official lunch. So how would it impact the whole working of SAARC, and how will it have the impact on India-Pakistan relations?
At the outset, let me thank you for the very initiative that you have taken, Mr. Dashrath, and somebody from technology taking so much of interest in geopolitics. Congratulations to you. My first and foremost take is it was a bold step by Government of India when there was so much of fuss around, and there was also an issue of threat to Mr. Rajnath Singh's life in Pakistan, where Mr. Hafiz Saeed made a big issue out of it, and there were protests across Pakistan. Even taking an initiative to go and attend it is itself a bold decision, and we wanted to prove something, that it's not that we are in politics because we want to play just politics. Somebody was ready to even sacrifice their life for the sake of country. I think that's the first and foremost point. Second is making a statement in Indian soil is different. Making a statement on the same issue in the country which is troubling us is much more important. I think there where geopolitics makes a lot of difference. I think that was a big score. And to a large extent, Rajnath Singh succeeded in doing so, but unfortunately, as the media was blacked out. In fact, there was only one media that was allowed, which was according to what the Pakistani government wanted. Even the other media within Pakistan was not allowed to cover this one. But at the same time, what we see in this particular episode is all about, first and foremost, is our commitment to make sure that SAARC discusses many of these things, because India always pushes for peace, whereas Pakistan always pushes the other way around. I think that's the biggest failure of SAARC. But Rajnath Singh used innovatively this particular platform to talk about terrorism that's being nurtured by Pakistan in Pakistani soil, which is very, very important, where he went on to talk about issues such as there is nothing called bad and good terrorism in the world. So it's all about doing something negative or wrong to the humanity. I think that message was clearly given, but it's unfortunate that he had to skip the lunch. But even that one is a very strong message, that we would not simply take the humiliation, but at the same time we know how to give it back. I think that's the strongest message that we found from the Indian government.
Now, what is the role of the other members? Are they with India, or are they neutral, or are they with Pakistan?
Something very interesting about SAARC is no country alliance or no country goes closer to India on all the issues. That's a problem that we have within the South Asian industry. As the famous quote goes, we can change our neighbors. We can change our friends, but we can't change our neighbors. I think that's a scenario India is facing in South Asian scenario. Now let's say somebody like Bangladesh. I'll give country-wise this thing because that makes it much more clear. Let's say with regard to Bangladesh, I think Bangladesh is very much with India because Bangladesh is also facing the terrorism crisis. And we have been working with regard to insurgency and several other things. At the same time, Government of India is doing a lot of good things for Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is certainly with India. For sure, there is nothing to worry. But at the same time, a country like Bhutan, which is not plagued too much with terrorism, probably they would not take a hard stand. But at the same time, they would make this good gesture of saying that any sort of violence is condemnable. And then coming down to Sri Lanka, yes, it is indeed a curious case because we see a different Sri Lanka altogether after Maithripala Sirisena has taken over. The Rajapakse most of the time used to play the China card, whereas with regard to Maithripala we don't see that one. So I think the message was well received because Sri Lanka has also been victim of such terrorism for a very long time. So there is no doubt about that they will support us. Now, Nepal is another interesting case. The Prime Minister, when in the initial stage he was given a hero welcome. But over a period of time when the Madheshi movement happened, the Prime Minister's effigy was also burnt. So there is a mixed approach to what they are doing, and because the political situation in Nepal is not stable, there is no clear-cut indication of what line they would take about. Now we have a new Prime Minister, Mr. Prachanda, Pushpa Kumar Dahal. So we would have to wait and see what would be the response from them. Now, other important country is Maldives, and Maldives is still it has not faced that heat of terrorism this till date, but I'm pretty sure that they are already aware of the situation, grim situation that is coming up, and I'm sure that they will also react in a very positive way. Afghanistan, for sure, we have goodwill with them, and we have done a lot, including the new dam that the Prime Minister inaugurated, and we have helped them in their parliament. We have done a lot of good things, and from the time immemorial, I think Afghanistan has always been very close to India, and that's what makes it jittery for Pakistan many a time. So, in this particular issue of terrorism, I think Pakistan is cornered. I think Pakistan is in a fix. Pakistan has to rethink about the strategies that it's using, where it's using terrorism as a foreign policy tool. I think it has to rethink over it.
So now recently Mr. Prachanda has taken over from KP Oli as the Prime Minister of Nepal. Initially Prachanda was seen as pro-China, but later on Oli was seen as pro-China. Now once again people feel that Prachanda is pro-India. Now how are things changing, and why is it so fast?
This is the beauty of geopolitics. I think this is a very good question, and many people fail to understand the magnitude of the problem itself. There are issues of investment in Nepal. Nepal recently faced earthquake. Nepal also faced a lot of other crises, including that of leadership. So what Nepal now needs is lot of investments, and many times they see investments that are coming from China. But the truth is, China doesn't invest in any part of the world where it doesn't get double the gain. Whereas in India's case, it's not always that way. No country invests in any country just on goodwill. Partially they do on goodwill, but there will be expectation of some outcome. Yes, indeed, India is also doing it that way. Now, hydel projects are very important component. And in hydel projects, I think India is lagging behind. China has overtaken India with regard to that one. But the truth is, there are flashpoints that one has to keep in mind, irrespective of the lenience towards a particular country or a region or a leader. Every politician has to keep that in mind. I think what Pushpakumar Dahal is trying to do is, he's just trying to retrospectively look at what has been India's role in the last 2 or 3 years. In that one, it is very clear when they were in crisis, let's say like the earthquake, I think India was the first to respond. And now with the leadership of Modi, I think he's much more confident that he can deal with in a much better way, and he can get some things done. So probably that's one of the reasons Prachanda is looking at India in a different way. Because till now, his affiliation was towards our left parties, and our left parties always felt much closer to the Nepalese movement, especially the people's movement as such. But this is a very positive factor that Prachanda is not looking at India in a negative way and trying to go with China more. And I think India should cement this particular relationship. It's very important, because one of the important policies of Modi's leadership has been neighborhood first. I think we have to live by that example, and we should take forward the relation.
So according to you, how is our opposition behaving? Are they behaving in the right manner, that India will they fortify the India stand, or are they behaving in a wavering manner? That
in fact, in subjects like comparative politics, we have a component called principal agent problem, where the politicians are supposed to reflect the sentiments of the people. I am not trying to say always the public is right. Public behaves many times on emotions. I am not trying to say that is correct. But at the same time, the public is not irrational. So the public expects the politicians to behave in a particular way, whether it is in the opposition or is in the ruling. It's expected the country to take a particular stand on some issues. Now, with regard to, let's say, this whole thing of the Hafiz Saeed issue that's coming up, and then the Home Minister making an entry to Pakistan. Now, most of the things are fueled by our opposition party itself in India, where they are trying to corner the government, corner the Prime Minister on the Kashmir issue. Now, irrespective of who is in position, if something has to happen, then it will happen. You can't celebrate a separatist leader. If somebody is getting killed, you cannot celebrate a particular issue, you cannot wave Pakistan flag, you cannot do something that is not acceptable in a particular country. I am not trying to say this as an extreme nationalism, but I am trying to say as a person who belongs to this country, who loves this country. I think everybody, if Pakistan is doing that one, they are also doing because of this particular interest only. I think our opposition is actually misleading in some of the factors. I think they are unable to separate politics from the practicality. They are unable to separate politics from the country, because you have to do your politics to take your country forward. You cannot make it negative, and you cannot go on public and talk all about and glorify separatist leaders, glorify terrorists, and talk about their human rights, not about the human rights of a soldier who's sacrificing his life at the age of 22 or 25. I think human rights is for human rights of everyone. Just because I am party to a state, that does not mean that I have an intention to go and kill. I follow the orders of my superiors. I'm just doing my duty. So loss is lost to everyone. So
According to you, what is our Pakistan policy now?
see, I'll tell you, something very interesting about foreign policy is not having a specific written policy towards a particular country is also a foreign policy.
Okay.
Because that's diplomacy is all about. Because not every time and in every situation you are expected to talk. There are some things that you have to just do. But having said that, that does not anyway mean that we don't have any clear plan to do so. We have certain things to do. But the thing is, how do you make the person who's in the opponent also to listen to you and also make sure that he values your speech or he values your policy? Now that's the important thing. Like as a mark of gesture, the Prime Minister invited the Prime Minister of Pakistan for his initial ceremony. Second, he also made a personal visit to Pakistan, irrespective of all those issues of security to everything. He went and he spoke to him, he attended a particular informal function, and then he came back. And he has been trying to do one or the other way, whatever that is possible, to make sure that the relations happen in this way. Now, Pakistan itself is divided on several lines. The intelligence works in a particular way, the army works in a different way, and the government works in a different way. Probably if you have to put it in hierarchy, probably the civilian government comes in the last. Now, our foreign policy or any other tool of diplomacy works with the civilian government. Now, if you have to deal with the civilian government, that civilian government should be in a position to take a particular stand. If that is not happening on the other side, what do you have to do from this side? You take positive measures, they meet you with negative. They include people in Kashmir and they start troubling you, or they'll initiate some terrorist acts. Now how do you manage this? It's like simply like this. You are a doctor. You are trying to give medicine to the patient. If the patient's body also responds to your medication, you can do something and say whether the doctor is good or bad. If the body is not responding to you, or the body is actually rejecting your medicine, you have no control over it. What the doctor does, when you get cold, first he gives you a certain type of medicine or antibiotic. He asks you how are you feeling. Then after a few days, when you say there is no progress, then you change to another set of antibiotics. That's how you keep changing your this thing also. It's an experiment. There are no set rules with regard to diplomacy.
So as long as Pakistan is considered, we have to say that our foreign policy is symptomatic treatment.
Absolutely, and also one can say it is reactionary.
Reactionary.
There is nothing to hide or nothing to feel shy about it. It's reactionary, depending on the situation we talk about, because there are no set of rules that are given in a game with regard to Pakistan. Whereas with others, there are certain rules, like how game theory functions. You have other things remaining constant. That doesn't work with Pakistan, because it's such a dynamic state and it's a very problematic scenario for India to deal with.
Dr. Kishore, it was very pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for
Thank you for the opportunity.